Hi everyone, this is David, and this is my analytics final presentation. Um, it is called an era of offensive basketball. I chose this topic because this is really a topic that I'm really passionate about, and it is when I watch the NBA games this years, and I see how game changes and how like the players' attributes has been transited from from the big guy who we traditionally think about the person who play basketball should be like tall, strong, that kind of stuff, but these days, players like um, Stephen Curry, Russell Westbrook, this kind of point guards really take the lead and uh, become more and more popular in the league. So I chose this topic to see if an era of offensive basketball is really coming in the NBA these days. Um, So when you look back in the most the most standing out season that I can represent in my idea is the 2014 and 15 regular seasons, and the top four MVP candidates from the season was Stephen Curry, who's a point guard, and then James Harden, who's a shooting guard, Russell Westbrook, who's a point guard as well, and then LeBron James is a small forward. When you look at these four guys, all of them are really um, offensive oriented players in the league. So the question is that is this uh, like people would value um, the offensive attributes more in these years. So when you look at old days, and players like Yao Ming, Kevin Garnett, and Shaquille O'Neal or Kevin Martin, those are guys who is really standing out in the league and have most of the eyeballs in the games. But these days has gone like so well. I mean like I can remember like there's another standing out big guys in this game in this days game. So I wonder if there's a true transition of it statistically. So that's why I want to conduct this project. So statistically, when you look at the number of power forwards and centers, which are the big guys in the top four NBA regular season MVP candidates, you can see that in 1999, there's like all four of them are big players. Like all of them are either a power forward or a centers, but this number really declined. And then when you look at 2014, none of them are in fact any of the power forward or centers. I think 2013 there's like two. I think it should be Dirk Nowitzki or Tim Duncan. Um, but I mean, those are really veteran players, and you can really see this number decline. And also financially, you can also argue that uh, big players are more and more hard to make into the top 10 or top 20 of the salary um, earners. You look at the trend from 2000, from early 2000 to these days, I can see a downward sloping and see that the number of power forwards and centers in the top 10 or top 20 list is also declined. Um, So, the hypothesis of my project is to verify if the NBA teams financially value more or for the offensive abilities over the defensive abilities. Note that the offensive players are more likely the smaller players, the shooting guards like Kobe Bryant, and then point guard like Stephen Curry. But defensive abilities are more important for the big players because they're gonna defense in the paint and then have the blocks and get a rebounds, that kind of defensive attributes. So I want to verify if this is true on the numbers. So the offensive attributes in the player careers would include points per game, which is our like the career average, the points per game, assists per game, and the field goal percentage, which is the accuracy of their shooting. Um, and it would I would say those are my hypothesis is that those attributes usually contribute more in terms of players' salaries for the single season than defensive attributes like the rebounds per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. Those are the top three defensive attributes that you can think of in a basketball game. So I chose the all of the players. Initially, I chose all of the players from the 2014 and 15 roster of an NBA games, but I limited all of the rookies or the players who has less than 3 years of experience in the NBA games, because when you're a young player, you're more likely to have a salary cap in your first 3 year of your contract, meaning that even your LeBron James, you're gonna have really low salaries in the first 3 years when you're in the league, even though your gaming attributes, your game stats is really fantastic. Therefore, I take out those players, and then there's 262 eligible players for the season, and then I chose a couple attributes from these players, like the previous I talked about all of the attributes, and also the experience, which means the number of years played in NBA, noting that the experience really um, uh, plays a really heavy weight on the salary, considering you're more experienced and you typically get paid higher. We will see if this if this variable would have a positive coefficient or not. And also, I included all of the dummy variables of the position here in the attributes, meaning that the point guards, if you're a point guard, you got one, and then same goes to shooting guard, small forward, and power forward. Centers is the redundant one; you can just take it out. And then the dependent variable would be the annual salary uh, for the player in 2014 and 15. So, to quickly test the hypothesis that whether the scoring ability contributes the most to players' annual salary, you can have a first pick in the following uh, two exhibits. You can see that on the left that says that the salary versus career points per game, and on the right is the salary versus the career rebounds per game. You can clearly see that there's a stronger relationship between points per game with the salary than the rebounds per game versus the salary. The points got really scattered around on the rebound per game graph, and then shows more linear relationship on the points per game, meaning there's a stronger relationship between them. Then I ran the regression for all of the variables at first, and also I noticed that I included the experience square, and also in the in the regression model, because when the experience uh, you know got years of experience, and the salary can exponentially higher. So I included that to see if there's a relationship between the experience square with the model. So when I include all of the variables, you can clearly see that only a couple that are significant. So I chose to run the top down list to screen out of the um, to screen out the um, unrelated or insignificant variables that um, that is not in the that is not in the not necessarily have to be in the model. And you can see that in the all variable included regression model, the adjusted R square is 61%, which is pretty good, saying that it is a workable model that we can work on. And also the p-value of the model is it's really small, suggesting this is a really legit model to have. And then after I eliminated all of the insignificant mm, variables that arrive uh, at the one on the right, which include experience square, points per game, assists per game, field goal percentage, rebounds per game, and block per game. It returns me a adjusted R square of 61%, which is less than 60, which is less than the smaller than the right one, but smaller than the all-inclusive one. But when you think about how many last variables that you need to include in such a model to achieve this kind of adjusted R square. So this is definitely a better model than the one on the left. So, and also it has all of the variables significant at least on the 5% level. So this is the first model that arrived predict to predict the salary of a player. And then um, I did, and then for the cross validation, I split the data set into two parts equally, and then I want to test the model to see if the defensive attributes are really important in the model or not. And so when you look at the list that I have for the cross validation results, when the first model would be the original one that I have on the last slide. And when I took out the block per game, which is the defensive attributes of the player, um, the samples, both samples got returned a smaller MSE, suggesting there's improvement of the predictability of the models, meaning that the block per game is not a really good variable to predict the salary of a player. It's not as significant as it's been taken out. But when you're taking out the rebounds per game, you can see both samples got a higher MSE, suggesting that the importance of this model in predicting the salary. So then I want to see if the experience square is important or not. So I took that out. For sample one, it got a smaller MSE, but for sample two, it got a higher MSE. So I decided to leave it there because when you're leaving the experience square into the model, the adjusted R square is 1% 7 higher. So and it's gonna increase the significance of other variables as well. Therefore, I chose to left that in the. You can see in this result page that when I left the experience square in it, all of the variables would have a higher significance level than if I left it out. So I arrived at the final model on the left, which compared to the first one, I only take the block per game out. And then I arrive at the final one. You can see that all of the attributes have a positive coefficient, except for the experience square, meaning that if you got a higher experience, then you're gonna have a less sensitive to the salary, which is kind of opposite to my guessing. Um, so that yeah, when you play like let's say you play like 3 years and then you're advanced to the fourth year, your salary may increase a lot. But when you're advanced from like 13 years to 14 years, it's not gonna be much change. So yeah, that makes sense. And then yeah, when you're then arrive at this final model, then I can arrive on my conclusion, which is yes, the offensive attributes are the most determinant factors in considering the salary of a basketball player in the NBA nowadays. Noting that all of the significant variables, only the rebounds per game is kind of a defensive, the attributes. But except for that one, um, experience kind of neutral, but points per game, assists per game, and field goal percentage are all offensive factors of a player. And also, it's worth noting 3 point. Another 3 points is that like rebounds per game is also include the defensive rebound and offensive rebounds. So it's not a pure defensive attributes of a player as well. And then coefficient of rebounds per game is the smallest amount out of the variables, suggesting less impact on salary because it has a less absolute value. More, moreover, it's saying that one shot made would count for 2 or 3 points in the game, but one rebound is just one rebound. That says that a player can easily go up to 30 points or 40 points in a game. And I mean, never heard about any player who made 30 rebounds in a game. So the rebound average, whatever, you can definitely have the stats, but top of my head, the rebound for a game for center in his career would be like 12 or 13. That would be really a lot. But points per game is really like 30 up, 30 plus something. It's really it's really common. So even though with that being said, the points per game has a higher coefficient than the rebounds per game, further solidified my hypothesis that the scoring ability, and also together with other offensive attributes, is the most determinant factors in players' salary. So conclude my presentation, and thank you.